We will commence with the opening addresses. I request Mr. Suresh Lulla, founder and managing director of Qimpro Consultants, to kindly deliver his address.
Mr. Gulu Mirchandani, the presenters, the panel of judges, the delegates. I'm sure you all know Mr. Gulu Mirchandani. Mr. Mirchandani, who in 1982, at the time of the Asian Games, became one of the players for color television. It was a crowded scenario. Trillions of people applied for licenses, but one of them came out ahead. Why? Because he had a very innovative belief. Neighbors envy, owners pride. That was the seed of innovation in Mr. Mirchandani. And since then, he's become an evangelist for innovation. And that's why he's here. We are very honored to have you here, Mr. Gulu Mirchandani. The presenters this year will be representing 6 of the most outstanding organizations in terms of best practices. The presentations are not by their choice, but by our choice. The process involved a high degree of harvesting of practices, and the applicant organizations went through a grueling screening process, the details of which are in my opening notes, welcome notes in your handout. I won't go through those steps, but they went through 9 major stages before they made it to the benchmark. In this, we harvested for each of them 10 best practices, and what they're going to be presenting are 3. And of the 3, the panel of judges sitting here have to select 1. Why 1? Because that one will go to New Zealand to the Global Benchmarking Network competition in Auckland, December this year. All 6 organizations will go, but they will represent what the judges believe are their absolute star practice. Sorry again. Our process for harvesting practices has become the subject of the Global Benchmarking Network. In fact, it has been considered by no less than Dr. Robert Camp as a best practice in itself, which they have recommended to other member countries to adopt. The driver for all this is the BestPrax Barometer, proprietary tool of Qimpro. The panel of judges sitting here have their task not cut out. It's actually a very happy responsibility to select 1 out of 3 winners, best practices for each organization. You may have disagreements, but you will agree that all 3 merit going there, but we have to choose 1. So please enjoy coming up with a consensus as a panel of judges. Now, my presentation to you is about benchmarking and innovation. Today we hear a lot about innovation, and innovation has a whole lot of interpretations. I'm humbled to talk before the guru of innovation, Guru Mirchandani, sitting here, and these distinguished panel of judges, such as Sridharan, Nagesh, James, Dr. Nirmal Jain, Rahul Mehta, Dr. Parag Rindani. They're each micro-analysts, and they will certainly pick holes in my arguments. Nevertheless, there's a strong link between benchmarking and innovation, and how benchmarking can support a culture of innovation. I'd like to take you to the first recorded evidence of best practices. Post-World War I, European generals were trying to find the best way to move soldiers, horses, and equipment from one place to another. That was their problem. Who did they benchmark? They benchmarked a circus. A circus faces similar transportation problems on an ongoing basis. And the benchmark was P.T. Barnum's circus that successfully transported personnel, equipment, and animals from one US town to another. The point is, you have to look outside to engage your right brain, to ideate, and therefore innovate. Take the example of a hospital in Singapore. This hospital had the best operation theater facilities, and you can well imagine how sterilized an environment in Singapore is. Nevertheless, when the patient reached the intensive care unit, there was infection. What they discovered is that the journey from the operation theater to the ICU was filled with clumsy steps. And in that, with all the tubes going into the patient, you had a series of opportunities for infection. Who did they benchmark? Formula One pit stop. Formula One pit stop in 7 seconds has your car back on the road. Now, a patient is smaller than a car, and the number of activities is as much as in a pit stop. They needed a second level of benchmarking. How do you get so many people to work in the smallest space? Who did they benchmark? A ballerina. Can you imagine this? A ballerina who performs all actions standing on her toes in one spot. There are tons of such examples. Jet Airways in '94, when it wanted to differentiate while so many new airlines were mushrooming through privatization, benchmarked the Taj group of hotels for check-in process. That became a differentiator. The message is you need to look outside your industry. You will not learn by benchmarking organizations in your own industry. If you do so, you are doomed to be a follower. You will never be a leader. These European generals studied what made Barnum's circus transportation so smooth and efficient. They then adapted and innovated and applied these best practices to improve their own army's transportation. So what are the lessons we've learned? When trying to do anything better, study how those who are world-class do it. I would imagine that's the mission for most people in the audience. They want to see how other organizations have done it. Others may have already solved the problem, so you don't have to reinvent and start from first principles. Consider those organizations who have similar processes, but who may be in an entirely different business or industry. Manufacturing can learn from services, services can learn from manufacturing, and you can get more granular about this. And I can assure you that even the winner organizations are here to learn from one another. They're going to learn some brilliant practices that will be presented by Canon India, HDFC Life, TCS, Tata Power, Shoppers Stop, and Yes Bank. By learning from the best, organizations can apply best practices